We got Zooey Zepher, Montana transgender lawmaker who has been disciplined by the GOP of the state for making the statement of that the GOP having blood on their hands based on banning transgender affirming care. Some really interesting transgressions here about how she's fighting on during first day of exile. Los Angeles Times. Montana transgender lawmaker Zooey Zepher spent her first day in legislative exile Thursday, relegated to a bench in a noisy hallway from a snack bar, across from a snack bar outside the House chambers, where she is no longer allowed. Zepher defiantly stayed put even after the Republican House Speaker said she couldn't be there, and a House security officer threatened to move the bench where she had set up her laptop. She listened to debate and voted remotely from there with a pink sticky note on the wall above her head with seat 31 written on it, her seat assignment in the House. You can see it right there. How cheeky. So she gets a little sticky note and she puts it above. She says, "You're not going to let me partake inside of the chamber? Well, I'll sit outside of it on a bench and I'll put a little sticky note. And this is now my seat." I mean, how cheeky, how courageous in the face of so much hate, so much vitriol, so much just, harassment that I'm sure this woman is facing. And for her to not only say, "I'm going to continue to participate, doing my work. I'm going to show up at the building and get as close as I can without actually being in the chamber. And I'm going to exercise what I was elected to do." Really courageous. Really courageous. And I think that this Zooey Zepher figure, we're not hearing the end of her story. Republicans have wanted Zepher to participate from behind the doors of the House minorities offices a day after they voted to ban her from the House floor for the rest of the session, which ends early next week. Her refusal to do so came as Democrats sought to keep Zepher's banishment in plain view after a week's worth of nationwide public scrutiny over Republicans' unprecedented actions to silence her. "I walked out yesterday with my head held high, and I walked in with my head held high today, ready to do my job," Zepher told the AP. Yeah! As cameras snap and espresso beans churned in a machine nearby, Zepher and Democratic leaders promised she would remain in the public eye unless Republicans elected to further limit where she could go in the Capitol. "There are so many more eyes on Montana now," Zepher said, "but you do the same thing you've always done. You stand up in defense of your community, and you stand up for the principles that they elected you to stand for." The motion Republicans passed bars Zepher from the marble-pillared house, the gallery above it, and the waiting room, but not in the public space in the hall where she set up. So the attention is a new phenomenon for Zepher, a 34-year-old serving her first term representing a western Montana college town after being elected in November. In her interview with the AP, Zepher linking the efforts to silence her to the decision by the Tennessee lawmakers to expel 2 black representatives for disrupting proceedings when they participated in a gun control protest after a school shooting in Nashville. So I really think that this GOP push to use all they can in terms of the rules of proceedings and basically ousting opposing views, whether it be in the case of the Tennessee lawmakers wanting for stricter gun control measures, the banning of assault rifles. This Zooey Zepher here is ousted for her views on transgender care. And really what these Republicans are doing is they're going ahead and they're creating martyrs out of these individuals. I would have never known who this person is. I would have never would have heard about Zooey Zepher if it wasn't for the GOP's push to silence her, right? And so I really don't think that this is working out in the way that the Republicans would have hoped it is, in that, sort of making an example out of these lawmakers in hoping that in the future, people who might want to speak out in a similar way are going to see how how Zooey Zepher was treated, how the Tennessee lawmakers were treated, and go, you know what? I like my seat. I like being in power so much that I'm going to just go ahead and not stand up for what I truly believe in. And I'm going to go ahead and let the Republicans repress and suppress my voice and my vote in hopes of saving face and not having to, answer hard questions. And there's nobody that's going to be willing to do that. There's nobody that's going to be willing to fold over to these strict Republican rules that are being enforced. And I really believe that the more that the GOP continues to severely punish lawmakers for having opposing views, if they continue to punish them in the places where they have the votes to punish them, there's going to be martyrs are going to be continued to be made, and the GOP's election chances